mama's place, catching vibes, sit back and we blaze in the sky like I'm out of space.
What's going on, cigar world? What's going on, cigar enthusiasts? This is Jack, the cigar enthusiast, and we're back with another banger on the virtual smoke deck, man. I hope you guys are having a great weekend. I am your host, Jack, the cigar enthusiast, and man, we got a show for you today. Man, we have one of the greats on, the greats in the industry on this live today, and I'm excited to be able to finally catch up and have a conversation with him. This guy is always on the run, busy as hell, all get out. All the freaking time, but we're excited to have him on the virtual smoke deck, man, and happy to have you guys here with us as well, man. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that hit that subscribe button, turn that notification bell, and give us a huge thumbs up. If you're watching on Facebook, don't be the only one to have this amazing content at your fingertips. Go ahead and hit that share button, hit that start a watch party, hit the like button, follow us on the virtual smoke deck, man, because we are putting out banging interviews every single Sunday, man. You know, actually, we got to talk about last Sunday, right? I don't know if you guys seen my video last week, man, but I was beat. I was tired, and obviously some personal stuff came up, and we weren't able to come on to the virtual smoke deck. And I mean, I even had to tell my guests, like, yo, I'm sorry, but we're gonna just have to reschedule because it's just not gonna work out, man. But I am happy to be back with you guys. I'm rejuvenated. I'm focused. I'm honed in. I'm ready to go. And I think today is going to be a great show, man. So if you're new to the channel, man, go ahead and hit them comment box. Tell us what's up. Hey, hello, how you doing? This is where you will be able to fully interact with us. Any questions that I feel are pertinent to the conversation. So if you hate Steve, this is not the podcast to do it on. I seen him in the background with a whole thumbs up. So, but yeah, man, go ahead and hit them comment box, man, and it's gonna be a great time, man. So today, man, we have a special guest that is really, you know, stirring up trouble in the industry, and I say trouble in the industry on the good details, right? This dude is making some phenomenal cigars. You know, I tell everybody that come in the shop, man, the Mi Querida and the Cisco Paso, and I definitely messed that up. But I told him I was going to do that because at the end of the day, reality has to sit in. I don't know how to say compromiso. So, yeah, go ahead and hit the comment box and call me a jackass if you want to. But I just don't know how to say it. I think I'm not the only one. I know a lot of people's like, oh, it's not Carpasso? Like, no. Yeah. Anyway, man, it's going to be a great show. But, yeah, man, if you smoke those two cigars, man, you already know that he is doing some great things, you know, such as the brulee as well. I mean, there's a bunch of things that we can talk about, but man, I'm not about to sit here and waste all y'all time talking and building up the hype for somebody that don't need the hype. I'm spotting the Sasquatch somewhere, and I want to say he's very, very close. So introducing our guest of the hour, Steve Saka. What's up, champ?
Dude, I can't compete with that energy. What the fuck? Seriously, it's so crazy. Every time I do these podcasts, I'm like, man, this guy's kind of a stiff, right? Because you never know how they're going to be when they get on. You have no idea. And I'm the same way. Like, I'm sure when people, they're like, yeah, he's there. He's not saying anything. He's just like, ugh. It's like a bump on a log. And as far as the hate thing, I love the hate. I love the tough questions and the slings and the arrows. I'll tell you what I don't like. What I don't like is when people are just pussies about it. Yeah. And they can't have and this is a new thing for me with social media. So I've been like doing this social media thing since way back, like early 90s when it wasn't even social media. It was just internet, you know, two geeks with a modem and a 300 baud, you know, thingamajiggy that made sure. But I don't know, just recently, man, I've actually had to start blocking people because as soon as you end up in like a little like tiff, it was just like the normal, like, I don't agree with you. I think you're a jerk. I don't agree with you. I think you're a jerk. You know, back and forth, not like one-sided, just the give and take. They like report you to Facebook about being bullied and crap. So it's like, I hate that part. but I'm okay with the dishing back and forth. I don't understand why. I don't understand someone that goes out of their way to like bag on someone on social media to try to get them kicked off. That's a new thing. That did not happen before. That's in the last couple years.
Man, you know what they like to call that as cancel culture.
Yeah, I know. I just didn't want to be cliche about it. That's why I didn't say it. And, you know
what's crazy though? Like, it's funny that you say that because I mean, I run Brothers of the Leaf online community. It's 24,100 people in that group. And man, you deal with people day in and day out that are just freaking the JJs about certain things. And it's like, yo, it's a cigar group. So they got upset because I wasn't allowing them to post guns all damn day. And I'm like, yo, I understand, America, freedoms, all that stuff. But hey, look, it's okay. But at the end of the day, we don't need to see your freaking cigar with a grenade launcher next to it. Like it does nothing for the picture. It's like it doesn't even make it look good.
I'll tell you where the problem is with that. It's like cigars are already like right at the bitter edge of what's acceptable, right? And then you throw in the guns. Now you're like in double jeopardy, right? It's like we already have enough problems already. So it's kind of like you got to fight both battles now with the social media guys. You got to fight the gun battle and the cigar battle. And I know, and everybody goes, screw them. It's none of their damn business. But the reality is, it's their house, and they just boot you off, and they shut it down for everybody. And that's one of the problems with. It's one of the reasons why we as a company we don't have a group.
Yeah,
there's a private group, Saka Squatch group, but I'm not an admin of it. I didn't start it.
Yeah,
I rarely post in it, which you know what I mean. And they do their own thing because, man, it's just too much drama. Eventually, it's too much trouble, too many people, too many opinions, and I just want to roll weeds into a tube and sell them. That's what I want to do. I don't want to be the social media admin, babysitter, all of that. So it's just too much.
And that's how many times I was like, you know what? I'm just going to cancel the group. I'm going to just delete it. They're going to wake up one morning and it's not going to be there. But, we end up bringing in a great admin squad. But like you said, Facebook community rules is ridiculous. Like you can run an ad for liquor, but you can't run an ad for tobacco.
The truth is, everything that promotes tobacco consumption in any way is a violation of the rules. So every one of us online that posts a picture of a cigar and saying, hey, I'm really liking this, I'm digging it, not selling it, not trying to trade it, not a link to buy it at a shop, we're all in violation of their rules.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of what they choose to enforce and when they choose to enforce it. And it's not fair. It's very uneven.
Yeah.
It's never going to be fair, and you just have to accept it. But yeah, I think I can understand the problem with the guns. The guns, like I said, the guns just add one additional this is a problem.
Yes.
It's the same thing with the TNA photos. There's a line, and you know what I mean? And it gets really dicey with those too, because all it takes is 1-2 people to click report for pornography or something. And I don't know if anyone realizes this. There's some sort of like judicial review group. That's not the way it works. It just automatically just kicks the person out. It locks the group. They send you a warning once, they send you a warning twice maybe, and then they just start whacking you every single time.
Every single time.
And there's no recourse. There's no, hey, this guy's a douchebag and he's upset because I deleted his post about something or other, and that's the reason. No, there's none of that. So there's just it's crazy. So you got to be really eggshelly. Which sucks, but it is what it is.
Absolutely. I think dealing with social media propaganda and regulation is just like dealing with the FDA regulations and propaganda. We, at the end of the day, that's a freaking uphill fight. No matter how many times we we mentioned something about it. It's still going to continue to be a fight and different things of that nature. Well, man, Steve, for everybody that don't know who you are, man, go ahead and introduce yourself to all these lovely faces that's watching and gonna watch here in the near future.
All right. Well, I'm Steve Saka. I am I'm the founder and co-owner of a small family cigar company called Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. We manufacture pretty much only tip-top, ultra premium style cigars. We have one product that's sub $10, but most of our cigars kind of float in the $12 to $20 range. It's a pretty simple philosophy. We just make cigars that I like, and I just don't really care about anybody else's opinion. I don't solicit other people's opinions. I don't care about other people's opinions. And it's not, and the reason for that's very simple. It's because we all have opinions, and we're all the arbiters of our own personal taste, and we judge what we individually like. So rather than try to figure out what all you guys like, I just make what I like, and I hope that there's other people out there that find what I enjoy to smoke also enjoyable. So it's a pretty simple formula.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy is it's funny that you say that, because not all manufacturers of cigars believe that. Like they
almost none do.
Yeah, it's like, man, no, we need to find the perfect cigar for everybody's palate, and it's like you're constantly running around in a circle that's never ending, because I mean, you're never gonna find a cigar. Because I tell people all the time, they be like, "Well, Jack, what you smoking?" I'd be like, "Well, it depends on the time of the day. It depends on how I feel that day. It depends on if I want pepper that day, or if I don't want pepper. If I want more oaky or nutty, it all depends." And you know, it's funny to hear you say that, because again, like I said, nobody ever says that. It's like, yo, I try to, you know, manufacture the best cigar and yada 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 yada, and it's like, yeah.
But everyone says the same thing, that we make the best cigars, and B, we use the best materials.
Yeah.
So just accept that as what everyone's going to say always. But in the end, it's really kind of irrelevant, because the consumers over time, they separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, what might be wheat for another guy is chaff for you. So you also have to kind of take that into consideration. I mean, look, I care that the materials are good. I care the cigar draws well. I care that it burns well. I care that it's consistent. I care that it provides what I consider to be a fair value for what it is.
Yeah.
But when it comes to strength, flavor, aroma, those are all very arbitrary judgment calls that we can only make individually. And that's why there's never ultimately ever a best cigar when you really get down to it, because it depends on your mood.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, my cigars are the best, but I guarantee you, Nick Perdomo would say the same thing. George Padron would say the same thing. Carlito Fuente would say the same thing. And I wouldn't take any shine off any of them. So, I mean, I think everybody's trying to do their best work possible. But yeah, so I do my own thing, and so far it's been working out for me.
Well, Steve, I mean, you've been in the cigar industry for a while, manufacturing for some of the big, you know, a big company, and then before you end up leaving. What actually got you involved into the cigar community? Like, what was the start to it?
Just an uber cigar geek, an addict, somebody that just went off the deep end. No different than anybody else that ends up tragically falling in love with cigars and going down the rabbit hole. I mean, the difference was I was lucky that I was in an economic position, that I had sold a previous company that afforded me the time and the dollars to just kind of follow the cigar thing. And I mean, I did not start off. I mean, I was really active in cigars probably for a good dozen years before I ever earned any sort of paycheck relating to cigars. I never had any intention of getting in the cigar business. So, I mean, it was just really a hobby gone awry is really what it was.
So, if I'm not mistaken, you blended for Drew Estate, correct?
I did. I was president I was president for 6 years and CEO for 2 years, and I ran factory operations for pretty much from about let me see, the tail end of 2006 through early 2013. I did a lot of the product development.
I mean,
a lot of the creative lead on a lot of that stuff.
I mean, producing some hell of a cigars. You know, I tell people all the time, if you like Liga, then try the Cis Caprizo. You know what I mean, Cis Caprizo. Say it one time for all these people.
Let's make it simpler for you. So you know the word compromise, right?
Yes.
So it's compromise, except it's compromiso.
Compromiso.
Yeah.
Compromiso.
Right.
Hey, look, if you know Pete,
you won't remember it, but don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. It's the one with the big green band that looks like some sort of weird Celtic cross on it. You know, it's one of the reasons why in a lot of my brands, if you notice, I don't really worry about putting the name on the band.
No, you don't.
And the reason why is because consumers, you know how many stores I go into and people ask for Patron cigars or they ask for, the cow cigar. I mean, if they can't pronounce brands that have been around for decades, how am I expecting them to pronounce any of these new brands? So a lot of times the visual is way more important than the name.
Yes.
Because that's what the consumer keys in on. They key in on color, they key in on shape. It's the reason why we all know what Coca-Cola Red looks like. We all know what the Nike Swoop looks like. And if I see the Adidas logo on a track jacket, I know it's Adidas. You know what I mean? So oddly enough, as humans, we actually better identify with shape and color than we do actually with names for most of us.
That's interesting.
So I always try to make things like, this is going to be the Stillwell. It's very simple. Okay, well, is a star unique? No. But it's the brand with the big ass star on it. You know what I mean? It's just that simple. And as soon as somebody comes and goes, yeah, it's the one with the big star. You're like, oh, I know what you're talking about.
I know
what
I mean? Exactly.
It makes it much, much simpler.
And I think simplicity is everything because, like you said, you have people come in all the time in the store and people are like, man, I'm looking for that one with the chicken or I'm looking for that one.
Right, exactly. It's the one with the bird and it was red and it was kind of dark and it was about 6 inches long.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I need a better clue. Look, things have gotten better now. I mean, we used to tell guys to put the band in their wallet, but now everybody I always say, hey, take a picture with your phone while you're smoking it. Just take a quick snap of the band, and that way when you go back in the store, you can show it to the retailer and say, hey, this is what I was interested in.
Exactly.
This is what I like.
I tell people that all the time. It's like, yo, if you like something, take a picture of it. At the end of the day, you're going to always forget. But one thing you won't forget is your phone. 9 times out of 10 when you're going somewhere. So
your phone's in your pocket, right? So just take a quick snap, and that way it's there.
So speaking of one thing that hold on. So one thing that I've been noticing, like obviously Jason brought it up earlier about Liga Privada and all your developments and blends that you did with all these other companies. And when it's funny that after you left, it seems as if things started to change, right? Blends start to tweak a little bit. And then now you have things that are blowing them out the water. And that's really a testament to you. That's testament to the hard work and dedication. But I guess the biggest question is not why you did it, but more or less when you dove into it, As you said, when you went down that rabbit hole, you went down that rabbit hole. Some people put a foot in the rabbit hole and not go all the way down there.
Because they're smart.
So tell us a little bit about like what was like the inspiration. Obviously you smoke cigars often, but what was like the inspiration that said, you know what, I'm gonna go to blending. I'm gonna be a factory manager. I'm gonna live in this.
It didn't start that way. The way it started was I just started buying and smoking a lot of cigars, and then I started reading a lot about cigars, and then I started traveling to Florida and just meeting a lot of the makers because a lot of them are based out of Florida, their corporate headquarters, and then That led to trips to the Dominican and Honduras and Nicaragua, and that then led to trips at the farms in Connecticut and Ecuador and Brazil and Mexico. And it's just something that just kind of happened. I never had any intention. I mean, I didn't get in the cigar business during the cigar boom.
Yeah.
And that was the time to get in the business. And even though I was crazy active during the boom, I was pretty well known. But I was actually, at that point, I was actually more known as a Cuban cigar expert than anything else. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of like, I was one of the leading American authorities on Habanos at that time. I'm not anymore. So it's kind of weird how it worked out. There's never been a grand master plan to do anything. I just seem to
follow your passion.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be so cliche about it. It's just the way things worked out, you know. I mean, and things are very different. You know, most people start from the bottom and work their way up, and kind of started at the top and have been working my way down ever since. I mean, my first gig was working for JR Cigar directly for Lou Rothman as a consultant. So I was at a $500 million a year, you know, tobacco company, you know, that was a big segment of it was premium handmade cigars. Yeah. So, I mean, and for me, that was tremendously educational because I was really into tobacco and I was really into cigars and manufacturing and all of that. But the thing that I gained when I worked for Lou at JR is I gained an education about the business side of how cigars are distributed, how they're sold, how they're branded, how they're marketed. And look, that's definitely a key part of what we do. You'd like to say it isn't, but you're just being naive. And it's one of the things. And look, it's a combination of everything. I mean, you need everything to be good for it to work. You can't market your way to success. You can market your way to getting noticed, getting attention, getting a couple, 3 good years out of something, but eventually the marketing will ultimately wear thin, and that isn't enough. So you also have to have a product that supports, you know, that takes advantage of that opportunity that you get from someone being willing to try your cigars. Yeah. Because very rarely do you get multiple bites at the apple. I mean, people try something, and if it doesn't float their boat, they're like, not for me. So you got to be really, really, be very judicious about it. And also, you know, one of the other advantages, because I've been doing it so long at so many different levels, I have a bit of a competitive advantage out of experience. I just do. And it's wrong to say that I don't. But at the same time, I mean, nothing is given to you. Nothing is free. It's a highly competitive, very difficult market. And you gotta earn it no matter what. It's just the way it works.
You know, what I've noticed is a lot of, you know, the names that are starting to quote unquote break the industry standards are typically, you know, very interesting people, to say the least.
Yeah, we've always been a quirky business.
You know, very, very, you know, different, to say the least. And, you know, one thing that I admire the most is, you know, you stayed true to who you are, and you stayed true to your brand. And you kept the focus of, I'm going to constantly produce great cigars, and great cigars is my focus, right? All the other, you know, cliche stuff, like you said, big ads and different things of that nature. I personally haven't seen them. I'm not saying that they're not there.
Look, we do a little bit of advertising, but most of the advertising we do is digital, and it's mostly with. And honestly, I know the people that I advertise hate hearing me say this because it isn't good. But the reality is, I just don't think it buys you anything anymore. What I do think has value is I think that multiple websites and multiple voices and multiple reviewers, I think that's good for our business. I think the more places that consumers can hear about cigars, read about cigars, that maybe they can find someplace that they like. So I like for them to stay in business. So I advertise on a lot of small platforms but I don't think it actually gains me customers. But what I do hope is, I mean, I'm sure it does somewhere along the way, but I hope that it more just makes for a healthy ecosystem, because if there's a healthy ecosystem, I'm confident that eventually they'll find Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. And when they do, that I'll get a chance to potentially get, them as a customer. So for me, that's it. Probably the biggest expenditure I make is Half Wheel. They're on the pricier side, but they have the traffic to justify it. But at the same time, I mean, just to give you they actually kind of quasi-canceled me this year because I had never prepared the banner ads for them, but I just kept paying for the advertising that I wasn't even using. And they were just kind of like, listen, we can't take any more of your money until you actually create some ads. You know what I mean? I got to give them credit because they were just being, they're just trying to do the right thing. Like, we can't take money from you if you're not actually advertising.
Right.
And, but yeah, it's, I think that today as consumers, I think we're just blind to it all. We've seen so many ads. We're constantly advertised to. There's brand names on everything. You can't go to a single website without a million little things popping up or along the edges. I can't stand to watch regular television anymore. The commercials just drive me crazy. It's like literally I get 6 minutes of television for 4 minutes of commercial, 8 minutes of television for 3 minutes of commercial. Like, I can't even stand to watch sports live anymore. I tend to let the game hit the DVR for about an hour and just turn my phone off so nobody texts me or ruins it for me. And then I sit down and I watch and I fast forward through the commercials. You know what I mean? Because I mean, how much shorter an NFL game is?
Yes.
If you skip the commercials in the halftime, right? I mean, it makes the whole viewing experience like an hour and 15 minutes.
Literally.
You know what I mean? So it's just so much better, and so I just think because of how the world is interconnected to now, that you can read a great review about a restaurant, but it doesn't have as much value as a friend that saying, well, this place is jamming, man. You got to go there. The whatever is the best I've ever had. You're much more likely to follow that than you are any review or ranking. I mean, I look at Yelp, and half the times I eat at some of these restaurants that have 4 and 5 stars. I'm like, who the hell is eating here and giving this thing 5 stars? It's like dog food on a plate, man. So you can't. So it's actually better when it's somebody that recommending, because when someone that means they're kind of vouching in a way. You know what I mean? They're sharing it because they don't have any commercial what am I going to say? My cigars are fabulous.
Yeah. No, it's
right?
like really no true validity.
Right. I mean, but a guy that just smokes a brulee said, wow, that was a great medium mild cigar. Joe, I think you'd really like it. That guy's got no economic skin in the game. He's got no reason to recommend it, right? He's just doing it because he really thinks his friend's going to potentially enjoy it. So I think that has way more value. But I do know the ecosystem of media surviving is good.
Yeah.
So if I can contribute in some small way, I do. And then there's other things that, like, I would probably advertise with Cigar Journal because I like their magazine. I just never seem to connect up with them.
Yeah. Well, there you go, man. I mean, I'm sure you don't need any connections, but hey, Cigar Journal, man, somebody tag them.
Look, I know those guys over there. It's just I don't know, just so busy. And the real truth is it's not giving them the money. It's making the dopey ad is the problem for me, because I don't have a graphic designer. I do all this crap myself. And I'm not very good at it.
Hey, look, what we all understand that, man. All my flyers come from me until I hired me a marketing team that I don't just have the time to do it. But anyway, Steve, talking about just putting out, rocking with those different type of media outlets. I think maybe the only thing new that came out is probably maybe a different size, but I want to say 2020 or 2019, the Brulee came out.
I think Brûlée did. Brûlée come out in 2019? Yeah, Brûlée came out in 2019.
And then 2020 was
20. Wait a minute, I'm confused. I can't even remember.
I think it came out in 2020, didn't it?
What year are we in now?
21.
So we're in 21. 20. No, it came out in. I don't even know. 2019. I thought it came out in 2019. I have to look it up. I can't even remember. It all blurs together for me. You got to remember. So, like for me, Brûlée, the blend was actually being worked on Brûlée back in the tail end of 2015.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So for me, Brûlée choosing when to launch it really wasn't about the cigar.
Mm-hmm.
It was more about, okay, when is it time and it fits in the portfolio and it makes sense and whatnot, because, you know, you got to be very judicious to not overwhelm. I mean, I feel like right now I have a lot of brands. In fact, I think I have as many brands as I think I have more brands than some other companies at this point. And normally the way it works is though you have brands that die, so you need new brands to replace those brands. And I don't have any brands that are actually dead. I have one brand that sells on the slower side. Not on the slower side, it does sell slow. Todos Los Dias, but it's very store dependent.
Yeah.
For some stores, they do really, really well with it, but most shops do not.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing in my portfolio that is not doing well. When I say it's not doing well, it's still running like 20 points up on the year right now for Todos Los Dias. So my dog is up 20 points.
Yeah. Hey, at the end of the day, it's all about that. And then, I mean, this year we're coming out with two bangers. Stillwell is one, the one that you're smoking, hands down a phenomenal cigar. We're talking from a retailer standpoint as well as a consumer standpoint. I had that cigar, and that is actually a cigar that's coming to Dapper D's as well. So they want to know when they're coming out. I can probably answer that, but I'll let you go with
I think it's going to be. So one of the weird things about Stillwell is I have a pre-obligation. It's the first time I'm ever going to do a launch thing for a cigar. I don't normally do launches with individual retailers, but because of the way Stillwell was developed, Stillwell, all the pipe tobacco is done by Cornell and Deal, and they're owned by Ludici. And Ludici also happens to be the parent company of Peterson Pipe. They own Peterson Pipes, and they also own a cigar retail shop called Low Country in South Carolina.
Yes.
So what'll happen is, because they're essentially my partner in the project, but they're not charging me other than for the tobacco, but they've been a great partner. I'm going to do a launch with them sometime in October. We haven't scheduled it, and then there'll probably be about a 3-4 week gap, and then we will ship out to all the stores that ordered at the trade show. So it'll probably be somewhere closer to Thanksgiving. A lot of it at this point is it's going to be packaging dependent, because it's just everything this entire year has been really, really difficult logistically and supply chain wise. So the cigars that are to be sold in November are all already made, all in the cool room. So cigars are done and just resting at this point. Bands have been delivered. UPC codes haven't, but those are relatively simple. We're waiting for those to come in. And the biggest problem is going to be the boxes. The boxes are going to be, they're going to be the headache.
The boxes are nice.
They're okay. They're nothing special. They're practical. I mean, I think the nicest thing about the box is the fact that each box has an integrated description of what the pipe tobacco blend is, because I know it's a really confusing brand. The fact that you have 4 cigars, they all look identical. They're all identical in size, but they're really 4 entirely different blends. So I wanted to try to make it simple on the on both the consumer and the retailer, that they would be able to sort them out, because the truth is it's 4 wildly different smoking experiences. I think the thing that's going to make it interesting is, I think that for most people that are interested, they're going to probably feel the desire to try all 4, which is really unusual with a brand. When the brand comes out new, you normally try the size you like. Hey, I smoke Toros. Hey, I smoke Robustos. Well, in this case, it's really 4 really entirely different cigars. So I think the sampling on this is going to be a lot higher than most new brand launches because of that. It's going to sell fantastic in the beginning. The question is going to be a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that I actually add something of value, to the world of cigars, and does it actually have merit? And I have an opinion about that, but ultimately consumers get to make that decision. So it's gonna be a while before I know whether it's successful or not successful.
Side note, for everybody that's you got the questions, you're commenting your questions. I will get to your questions here in very shortly. So just stick with us and just thanks for your patience. Anyway, Steve, talking about the steel wheel, I think that was one of the most interesting things that when I heard about it, was that there was actual pipe tobacco. Tell us a little bit about the pipe tobacco that was used, the blend of the pipe tobacco, and then that's gonna stir into some other things.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things so it's something that I've done for a very long time. I have made these pipe tobacco cigars for myself to smoke. I like to smoke a pipe, but I prefer smoking a cigar. It's just simpler.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of consumers that have tried to smoke a pipe and ultimately give it up very quickly because it's very hard to keep it burning. And also you find yourself constantly relighting it and you get very severe tongue bite trying to keep it lit, which then makes it a very, very, very unpleasing experience. So by incorporating the pipe tobaccos into a cigar, it makes it an easier way to enjoy it because there's far more range and diversity in pipe tobaccos than there are in traditional cigars, which are made out of almost exclusively black tobaccos. And for those guys that don't smoke a pipe, there's also cigar blended pipe tobaccos that use cigar tobaccos, either almost exclusively in the pipe blend or as a component of the pipe blend. So they kind of dip both ways. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to make some pipe blends that were going to be very easily recognizable to a pipe smoker. So there's certain genres of pipe tobacco that kind of fit into little categories. So, I mean, the one that everyone's familiar with is Aromatics. Those are all the cherries and the chocolates and the vanillas and all of those kind of more infused, Black Cavendish and Burley. And that's kind of what the aromatic number 1 is. But I personally don't smoke a lot of super uber sweet. I don't drink a lot of sweet. And even as fat as I am, I oddly enough don't eat a lot of sweet. I'm much more the bread guy and the potato guy. So it's a very tempered, measured kind of aromatic. It'll be interesting to see how that does, because it could potentially appeal to the consumer that smokes like a tobacco or a Java, or maybe, acid's a much different animal because acid's kind of much more of a potpourri, patchouli kind of thing going on. But it is there. It's a much more sophisticated kind of aromatic experience. And then the other 3 is we have a traditional English blend, which is very heavy in Latakia, but it's a very high grade of Latakia. Mm-hmm. So in fact, and that's the case with all the pipe blends. It's like everything. You can buy inexpensive pipe tobacco. You can get for like, $1.60 for like 4 ounces, or like the stuff that I'm using, 2 ounces of this runs about $18. These pipe tobaccos. These are all top echelon pipe tobaccos. So the English has got that classic kind of smokiness, much more. It's got more peppery nature. But again, I don't beat you over the head with it. The cigar is not meant to replace a pipe. What it's meant to do is to give you an essence of what those pipe tobaccos would be like if you smoked them in a pipe. And then we have the Bayou 32, which is a classic Virginia and Perique blend. That's the one I'm actually smoking now. And of the 4, it's probably the one that's the least pipey.
Yeah.
The reason why is it isn't. It's just Virginia and Perique is kind of like it's a very common combination in pipe. They call it Vapors for Virginia/Perique, a vapor. And it's meant to be an easy everyday smoke and has a certain creaminess to it. It also has a little bit of a weird umami kind of sensation from the Perique. But of the three of the pipe blends, I think that'll be the one that for some consumers, they'll just go, oh, that's just a nice medium-bodied cigar. I'm not sure whether they'll be able to detect the vapor component. Whereas I think that the guy that the pipe smoker that smokes vapors, I think he'll instantly recognize the flavor profile. And then the fourth one is we did a classic Navy plug, kind of flake cut, where the cigars, the tobaccos themselves, they're Cavendish with dark rum, but the rum doesn't actually ever come in contact with the tobacco. It's actually in the Cavendishing tray that's used to steam the Golden Virginia that they used to make the Cavendish out of. So it'll be interesting. And of the four, the Aromatic has a single sweet tip on it because the sweetness helps to complement the aromatic flavors, where the other three, they have no additional sugars added to the head of the cigar. It's a very unusual line.
Yeah.
And it's all done very top tier. And I don't know whether there's a place for it in the market or there isn't a place for it in the market. I just know that it's unique and it's different, and it's something that I've been doing for years. So, and the fact that Cornell and Diehl, who's one of the two largest tobacco manufacturers in America, there's them and then Sutliff, the fact that they were so gung-ho on the project made it possible, because we ended up creating 4 custom pipe blends that I then created 4 custom cigar blends to best complement the pipe blends. And the pipe blends are done in a way so they combust properly in the cigar. So there's some things with the way we did the pipe tobacco that made it more cigar manufacturing friendly as compared to if you were to just jam it in a pipe and smoke it. So we put a lot of work and a lot of time, but this was the benefit of the COVID year because I couldn't go to Nicaragua, but I could go to South Carolina.
Absolutely.
And and it afforded us a lot of time because it was an arduous project because I think we made easily, I know I personally went through over 220 different pipe blends, and then we custom made well over 60 just to prep for the project. And in fact, I've already got other ones done. I already have another aromatic. I think it's Aromatic 43. I have an Oriental blend done. I have a Balkan blend done. I have a Scottish blend done, but didn't want to release those right out of the gate. Let's start with these 4 and let's see what happens with those before we start worrying about the future. You know what I mean?
And I think using those pipe tobaccos in a way, they combust with the actual cigar tobacco is interesting because those, a lot of people don't understand it. I guess pipe tobaccos go through different fermentation, different curing processes.
Totally different. And it depends on the tobacco.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are heat treated, some of them are fleur cured, some of them are air cured, some of them are pressed. I mean, and even like with the English that we make, I like the way it tastes when it's pressed. So we press it into a crumble cake to then have to break those cakes up. It's a lot of extra manual labor, but I really like the way the tobacco tastes after it's been pressed into bricks.
Yes.
So not good for cigar manufacturing, but good for the tobacco. The question is, A, is there a market for it? B, is the aromatic sweet one aromatic and sweet enough?
Yeah.
Or will the consumers that like that just really wish it was much more, hit them in the face with it? You know what I mean? And it's hard to know. And time will tell. And what I hope is I think between the 4, there's probably one in that combination that most consumers would find something that they would find appealing. What I don't expect to have happen is that somebody love all four because they are so wildly different. Yeah. Like for me personally, the Aromatic is my least favorite. Okay. But as an Aromatic, I like it a lot, but I have to be in the right mood for it.
Yeah. And I think, the biggest thing is, hearing you say that, not too many people are going to say, hey, what's my least favorite? And I think right there is kind of how your audience engages so heavily and so passionate for you. It's like at the end of the day, there's no sugarcoating. There's no anything to it. If you don't necessarily, it's not your favorite. That's one. Now I guarantee most people are going to go try that to see if they can either disagree with you or agree with you. And at the end of the day, if they do agree with you, guess what? You have 3 other blends that you can try that hands down is going to be appeasing. I mean, like I said, a lot of us retailers and our media guys that was at PCA this year was able to smoke it. Retailers wasn't really able to smoke it unless you brought it in. So we, bringing it in and then smoking the different ones and just having that dialogue with your rep and, even you on the floor is great to know about it, man. So, man, we have been bombarded with a large amount of questions. So I'm going to hit those questions. Then I got a couple of things I want to hit on as well. So question from Chris, Steve, why is most of the black tobacco for cigars come primarily from Central and Latin America? Do you foresee black tobacco grown in other regions, Florida? I would imagine that black tobacco is probably Maduro or your Lajero leaves. No,
black tobacco is the term for the seed variety.
Okay.
So basically, Nicotiana tabacum, you've got Brights, you've got Burleys, you've got Orientals, and the classification that's given to cigar tobaccos is black tobaccos or negra tobaccos, and those are the air-cured ones. And the reason why they're primarily grown in Central America is twofold. Number one, it's a proximity thing. Obviously, if the factories are located there, it's much easier to have your tobaccos grown locally. It makes it easier to manage the crops. It makes it easier to manage all the different steps. But the biggest reason why is because of cost. Costs are crazy, and you really need very inexpensive labor because it's entirely a hand cultivated crop. I mean, the most mechanization that we now have is we use tractors to till the fields. But I mean, even that 40 odd years ago, you still had a lot of oxes dragging plows. So it requires so much hands-on that you need to be in a country where labor is relatively inexpensive. So just to give you I saw in the question, you were asking about Florida sun-grown, right? The tobacco's grown in Florida that Jeff grows on his farm. Yeah. The tobacco that Jeff grows on his farm, filler tobaccos, literally cost. Let me do the math right here because we're talking about his cost, not the selling price. The cost is about 9 times higher to grow Florida sun-grown, the same seed in Florida, as it costs for us to grow in Nicaragua. So therefore, it's just cost prohibitive as the end result. The only reason why Connecticut survives is because Connecticut broadleaf is a very unique wrapper, has a very unique flavor profile, has unique characteristics, and it has to be grown in a cold weather climate. And in Connecticut, they've been growing it. But I mean, you could grow broadleafs in Wisconsin or Michigan or, in a million different places. But when you just look at that zone on the globe, short of some crappy places, I'm sure in the Soviet Union, which I guess is not the Soviet Union anymore, Russia, there's not a lot of cheap places to grow tobacco, right? Yeah. And so the only reason why it maintains is because they've always grown tobacco there. Yeah. But if it wasn't for the unique nature of that tobacco and consumers being willing to pay for it, that operation would cease right away because Connecticut broadleaf, typically by the time you get to the end of the rainbow, it costs about 3 times more than a Cuban seed wrapper grown in Central America or Ecuador or a lot of other places. So it's expensive. And, And that's always part of the deal that, it's, I mean, we all know how expensive cigars already are. And it's kind of a catch-22 as a factory. You want to keep costs down because you need the volume, because everything's based on the volume, your efficiencies, the overheads, they all get divided by the number of units that you make.
Yeah.
My situation is a little different. But for most people, you have to be very conscientious of the costs. And so I don't really see tobaccos growing in a big way in other places. I think the only reason why you would see them done so is because someone's doing something specific and unique where they have a mechanism to then ultimately sell it, as Jeff does with Florida Sun Grown.
Yeah.
He's the retailer. So like with Jeff, he doesn't even charge you for the tobacco. He literally gives it to you because he knows that if he charges you what it costs and you put it into your system, and then you have to worry about how the yield is and the index and making it efficient, it's just going to drive the cost crazy.
Yeah.
So basically he gives you that tobacco for free. You make a cigar using it. You give him the cigar back without that cost as part of it. And then he puts his growing cost into the retail price of the cigar at the end of the chain, rather than me at the beginning of the chain putting that cost in. You know what I mean? Because that cost then ends up getting taxed, and that cost ends up getting a markup, and that cost ends up getting another markup before it gets to the retailer. So it's the only really practical way to do it. So I don't really like, I use Wisconsin Comstock in a product. But that's, it's really difficult. And, there's no large scale commercial growing of that tobacco. I buy it from really a guy that's like one step above a home farmer. You know what I mean? He grows a lot of other things, and he likes to grow tobacco too. And he plants a bit of Comstock every year, but I never get more than 300-400 pounds at most out of him. He's just he's never going to be able to produce a lot of it.
Yeah.
So that ends up being a limiting factor too, because you hate making cigars that you can't repeat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why a brand like Padron is so successful. As a consumer, when you smoke a Padron, you know what you're getting every time. It has a very consistent flavor profile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a benefit. So I'm always conscientious when I'm making a blend. It's very easy to make something that's 5,000, 10,000 great cigars. The question is, can you duplicate that on a consistent basis and make hundreds of thousands, if not a million, of that cigar by hand? That's always the challenge that you have as a manufacturer.
And I think that is interesting. I learn something every time I sit down with two great minds, and learning that about Florida tobacco. I mean, I always looked up to Jeff. Even as a retailer, I've had Jeff on the show, and I told me and his conversation afterwards was amazing. And me and him talk not often, but when he do, it's just like, it's like, wow, it's just another way to soak up, great information.
Yeah, I think that all of us, whether it be somebody on my end, listening to other manufacturers, listening to other actual cigar makers or real tobacco men, I glean something out of that conversation. I glean something out of conversations talking to retailers, whether they be really small or really large. I mean, there's a lot to learn if you listen.
Yes. That is key. Yeah. If you listen.
Yeah.
Rolling into this next question, what's your favorite region to get your tobacco from, and why?
I don't really have a favorite. I mean, it really just depends on the ingredient. I mean, I do tend to, part of it too is also,
depends on the
blend. Right now I tend to focus on 3 wrappers. I tend to focus on Ecuador Habano, higher primings that are grown from Oliva Tobacco Company. And I pretty much get everything from their La Mecca farm, because that's my favorite farm that they have. Connecticut broadleaf. Most of the Connecticut broadleaf I get from smaller farmers like Pollock or Gorsic because of its unique nature. I have San Andres Negro, that Mexican wrapper. And I buy the vast majority of that also from a very small farmer that grows crops 3 years exclusively for me, but now he's grown and he's selling tobaccos to other people. And then I have the Ecuador Connecticut shade that I use on the brulee. Most of my filler materials are from Nicaragua, but that has more to do with it's just the flavor profile that I like. And it's also manageable for me because I'm in Nicaragua so much more frequently. And I get tobaccos from all 4 of the primary growing regions, Jalapa, Condega, Esteli, and then Ometepe, lesser degree to Ometepe. Dominican-wise, the only thing I'm really using Dominican is a kind of a weird hybridized Habano strain that I'm getting from Leo Reyes. Then I use a little bit of Pennsylvania seed leaf here and there as a trippa. But the vast majority of the filler materials are Nicaraguan for the most part. And look, I have some cigars that have, like Todos Los Dias has a sun-grown Nicaraguan wrapper on it from Jalapa. So I do deviate, but I try to – that's the other thing too. Trying to – if you can have common core ingredients that are shared between your blends, that helps to make them more consistent. Yeah. It helps to make your buying better. It helps to make everything work smoother. So there's a lot of cigars that you'll find 1 or 2 materials in that are in something else. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of similarity between Umbagog, Mi Querida, and Mi Querida Tricky Traca. It's really small variations that separate those 3 from one another. Sin Compromiso and the new Sin Compromiso, the Paladin, it's still the core Sin Comp blend, but with the addition of 1 additional ingredient and adjusting of the other, and then also changing the way we do the bunching and the way we do the trunk pressing on it. We press that cigar a little firmer than we do the traditional Sin Compromisos. The current Sin Compromiso that's in the marketplace is what you would call a semi-prensado, a soft press, a semi-press. And the benefit to that is it makes the draw a little bit more airy and a little bit quicker burning. I tend to prefer my cigars a little slower burning. For the Sin Comp blend, the way it was, the slightly opener draw actually enhances the blend. But on the heavier iteration, slowing it down a bit actually helps. So there's something where the ingredients are very similar with the exception of 1, but it's how you're manufacturing the cigar that actually makes the biggest difference in the profile of the taste and how it smokes. And again, it comes up to consumers because, one of the problems, one of the good things and one of the negative things about my cigars is my cigars tend to be very densely packed. They tend to be very firm. And I think for a lot of consumers that aren't familiar with my brand, they pick them up and they instantly think they're not going to draw because they're so used to getting cigars that are so firm, not drawing. But there is a way to make a firm, densely filled cigar that does draw. And the benefit of doing that is it will end up slowing the burn down, which will then make the burn more even. It'll make the combustion smoother. It'll let the cigar smoke cooler. And a typical Toro of mine, it'll last about 15, 20 minutes longer than most others. The only exception of that is Sin Compromiso. Sin Compromiso in the current iteration burns at about the pace you would expect a cigar of that size to burn. But almost everything else burns a lot slower than other cigars of comparable size from other manufacturers.
Man, getting into one more question that I think is going to be a great question. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of them. But I think this is a very interesting question to learn. Just wondering, how many cigars per acre can you plan on on average?
It doesn't work that way because, look, it depends on what you're looking at. So let's take a Habano seed crop. So if we're looking at a Habano filler crop, what we would like to get off from an acre of land is we'd probably like to prime off about 1,700 to 1,800 pounds. Let's go on the higher end, 1,800 pounds. So you're going to have 1,800 pounds. You're going to lose probably between curing and then fermentation, you're probably going to lose about 20% or so just in shrinkage. So I'm going to end up with somewhere around 1,400 pounds. And then as an individual ingredient in a cigar, as a filler, let's just say moderate weight, like a Viso grade, I'm going to average somewhere probably around 13 pounds per 1,000. So what you're looking at is getting, oh gosh, what's that going to come out to be? That would be enough tobacco to really, an acre would be enough to contribute to over 1 million cigars. But that's only one component, within a brand. So, let's think about this. 11 pounds. Let's say you're using an Ecuador Habano tobacco. You're going to get about 11 pounds per 1,000 on the wrapper. You're going to end up getting another, roughly, the binder is typically a little bit lighter because you want the combustion to be a little bit better to help the wrapper along. Sometimes it's a little thicker. Let's just go with 13. And then you're going to end up with 4 filler ingredients, 3 of them at the full 11 to 13. So you get about 32 pounds there. And then an accent ingredient for another 8 pounds. You're at 40 pounds. So you're looking at about 64 pounds of tobacco roughly to make about 1,000 cigars. So if you're going to look at it on an acre basis and you're saying, hey, I'm going to get 440 roughly divided by 64, should come out to be somewhere an acre would produce about 22,000 cigars roughly. But it doesn't work that way because you're getting multiple tobaccos from multiple acres, from multiple growing locations. And, the wrapper makes a huge difference because like on Ecuador, Connecticut, if you're looking at a grade 1, grade 2 in that LW, BW kind of hue, you're going to be using, it doesn't take as much. You're going to end up using somewhere between 4.5 to 5 pounds per 1,000. If you're using Connecticut broadleaf, the very lowest you're going to use, like on a 1LS, which is a lower priming, you're going to be looking at somewhere around 19 pounds per 1,000. For most of the cigars that I make, I'm sitting closer to 23 to 27 pounds per 1,000. But also I'm losing a lot more tobacco. So not only do I need about 2 to 3 times more weight, but I'm also losing a lot more on the front end in the yield because I don't end up just losing 20% of shrinkage like I would on a Tripa crop, on a Connecticut broadleaf crop. I'll be lucky out of that broadleaf crop if 40% of the tobacco ends up ultimately being usable for my purposes. And that's why it so dramatically increases the cost. A tenderloin cut of broadleaf to make a wrapper is going to really high end is going to average you between 92 cents to $1.08 a cut. Whereas on a super high-end Cuban seed, sun-grown wrapper, I'm going to be floating somewhere around 32 to 34 cents a cut. And boy, I've now really lost everybody, right?
Hey,
what the hell is he talking about?
I ain't gonna lie, I was like, Jesus. Like, for you to be able to spit that off the top of the dome, the way you did, though, is just so, like, now we understand when people say, I would never call myself a master blender or a master or nothing because it's like just in that alone. I thought I knew tobacco pretty well, which I'm not gonna say I don't, but I mean, based on what you just broke down, all that was foreign language to me. I was just like, wow,
So, yeah, but I mean, it's not that I have anything. It's just if you did it every day, that was your job, right? And you were spending not hundreds of thousands, but millions of dollars on buying these tobaccos, I would hope to think that you would be educated enough to also do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think the thing that most consumers don't understand is that, and this isn't a negative, but most of the people that you meet in our business really are not really that integrally involved in the tobacco or in the cigar manufacturing process. They are primarily brand people. They're brand people, they're salespeople. And look, it isn't a knock against them because at some point in the chain, there had to be someone that actually knew what the fuck was going on. You know what I mean? Because the cigar wouldn't be there. Yeah. But it is kind of, and that's kind of where things are different. I come from that end and now to be in the end of selling, whereas most people are in the selling end first and they go the other direction. So
the educational stuff
it's
behind.
Yeah, I mean, look, efficiencies are really critical for us. Numbers make a difference. There's a big component of being successful at cigars and tobacco is accounting. You have to be, and if you look at a large scale factory, like take a Drew Estate, for example, if Drew Estate's making, let's just say 100,000 units a day, and they're making way more than that currently. But at 100,000 units a day, I mean, a penny equals $1,000.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the year, that one penny equals like nearly 300K.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a big deal, that penny. So, keeping track of all of these things are really, really crucial to your ultimate success. And also, you got to understand that it's not like there's a fixed price on anything. We're buying tobacco. You're getting different yields. You're getting different indexes. You're getting different weights. You're getting different utilization. So every cigar you make, the price is constantly changing.
Yeah.
I mean, on the factory floor, cost to production, oftentimes they vary by as much as 10 to 15% on the regular. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to absorb them. Sometimes it's much worse. So that has to kind of be built into what you're looking at to make things consistent. And, a lot of times, like cigars in my price point, there's some fat in there. I'll admit it outright, but that fat is also what allows the cigar to be consistent, because when things don't go your way, you need that extra money to keep the standards up. Yeah. So it's really important. So it's one of the things I find really weird in our business, how so many brands are launched at a high price to then dramatically come down in price.
Yeah.
And to me, I just don't know how to take that. It just makes me feel like I'm being lied to. You know what I mean? I mean, like I can't even, if a retailer said, hey, do a buy four, get one deal, I can't do a buy four, get one deal with a retailer. There's no money there for me. You know what I mean? But there are a lot of products in the marketplace that are priced at a price point with the intent of them being sold at half off, almost from jump. And the problem for someone like myself is that's what the consumers expect to see. You know what? They're almost being taught a bad habit.
Yeah.
That, oh, well, this box of cigars is $200, but you can get it any day of the week for $99.95. Well, the cigar should have just been $99.95 to begin with, right? That's what it should have been, but it ain't. So what does that mean? Now, when it's a closeout, it's one thing. Okay, hey, we made a lot of this stuff. It didn't sell well. We just want to get some money back, cover as much of our loss as possible, and move on to whatever our next brilliant idea is. But there are plenty of brands in the marketplace that their entire branding strategy is to have a really elevated MSRP so that it can always be deeply discounted. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, how was Monte Cristo White a $13 cigar just 3 years ago, and now it's a $3 cigar any day of the week, $3 to $4, available online? What's going on here?
Exactly.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, if it was a $13 cigar, it could probably have been a $12 cigar. Maybe it could have been an $11.50 cigar. But it can't be a $13 cigar and now it's a $4 cigar, right? There's some bullshit going on.
Yeah.
There. It's just not possible. And but look, there are consumers that are in that price point.
Yeah.
Right? There's way more consumers that are in that price point than at my price point.
Yeah.
So you're going to sell a boatload more cigars. I mean, if I could make Mi Queridas and they were a $6 cigar in a box, you know how many Mi Queridas I'd sell?
Yeah.
It'd be craziness. Now, I'd be losing money every time I did it. So it doesn't make any practical sense to me. But there are entire brands that are built on the price point strategy.
I think that's crazy too. You see, it's funny that you mentioned that because, for retailers, seeing price points, ridiculous price points on certain cigars is like, what in the, how am I supposed to, even begin to compete with that? And then you know, on the consumer side, I'm like, shit, why not? You know, that's an amazing price. But then you look at things like you said, how'd it go from a $13 cigar to a $4, $6 cigar?
Let me say this. As a consumer, you're getting what you pay for. As a general rule of thumb, yes, there are some things in the marketplace that are really tremendous values. And there's other things in the marketplace that are just crazy overpriced and should not be there at the price that they're at. But for the most part, in the end, once all the dust settles, if the cigar is worth $4, it becomes a $4 cigar. If it's worth $8, it's an $8 cigar. If it's genuinely an $18 cigar, it will sell at $18. You know what I mean? You don't see Plasencia's Alma prices crashing.
No.
You know what I mean? You don't see Opus X prices half of what they used to be. So, you know what I mean? So in the end, it settles where it needs to be. So even though the consumer feels like they're getting a great deal, because everyone likes to get a great deal, they're really just getting what they should have gotten for their money in the first place. Is what ultimately ends up happening. The only time it isn't true is when it's really a closeout. And hey, I really like brand XYZ. It was one of my favorites. For whatever reason, it didn't sell well. So they're clearing out the old inventory to make way for whatever's new. Well, there's a chance for you to pounce on something. Say, wow, I really like this. This is a great price. But, I mean, Oliva V's are 40 to 50% off across the board at this point. And they've been pretty much that way now for going on almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking any shine away from Oliva V. It's a perfectly fine cigar. But the reality is, if they can make it at this price point for the last 2 to 3 years, then that's really where the price should have always been.
Yeah,
is what the price should be. But in the end, consumers get to decide. Look, it's your wallet. You spend on what you want. And everybody finds the price that they're comfortable with, and then everybody finds the best cigar they can within that price point.
And I think it's crazy that even looking at that from a more of a consumer standpoint, I always tell people, you know, I can go sell somebody a $27, $30 cigar. But the difference is if I can tell them or sell it to them and say, this is going to be a great cigar that's going to make you come back, versus this is a great cigar. Me personally, I think the price point is a little bit out of whack. But again, you look at those different things, and I think consumers can tell when they spend that $22, that $25, that $100 on the cigar, they're like, okay, this is worth that. And if it's not, they'd be like, well, I'm never going to buy that shit again.
The reality is, at this point, most top-of-the-line, top-shelf cigars are going to probably appear somewhere between the $15 and $22 price point. And then once you kind of get beyond that price point, you're really then kind of paying for marketing and branding and positioning and these kind of extra additional things. You know, but I mean, it's like anything. I mean, there's only so much tenderloin in a cow.
Yeah.
Right. And the tenderloin is going to sell for more. And to get cigars that are made out of the tenderloin, the best of the best tobaccos, you are pretty much now in that $15 and up category. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a perfectly great cigar that you enjoy for $11 or for $7 or for whatever. But at the same time, it isn't on par. The question is, are you satisfied with it? Do you like it? Do you enjoy it? I almost always, in my own portfolio, I would rather smoke Mi Querida than Umbagog, personally.
Yeah.
I find Mi Queridas to be smoother. You know, they get additional aging. The wrapper sort is better. So for me, it's worth it. But also, I can perfectly understand why a consumer would be happier with an $8 Umbagog than a $13 Mi Querida.
Yeah.
They may not feel as though the $5 price difference for them is worth that extra jump.
Yeah.
And that's the decision that we all make about everything. It's what we make when it comes to wine. It's what we make when it comes to booze. Like, look, most scotches I drink these days kind of fall in that $60 to kind of $90 a bottle range.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I found my sweet spot. You know what I mean? Yeah, I've had some amazing ones that cost $300 a bottle, but I don't switch to the $300 bottle. It's too much for me.
Exactly.
I've had some that I like that are cheaper, but I never tend to really stay on them. I kind of have this part where this is where I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Same thing with wine, same thing with everything. You know what I mean? But it's always, I mean, that's one of the universal truths. We all like to feel like we're getting value for our money, but what value is for our money can only be determined by you yourself. Right? I mean, look, I would never buy a Mercedes. Beautiful cars, wonderfully engineered. But for me, I don't feel it's worth the extra 50, 60,000 compared to another vehicle. Now, there's another guy out there that absolutely loves Mercedes. It's his favorite vehicle in the world. He gets a tremendous amount of enjoyment from driving it. For him, it's not even a question. I'm going to spend the money. I want that AMG.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And these are answers that you can only individually determine.
So outside, I'm sorry I'm not able to get to the other questions. I value my guest time and try to make sure that the
I can stay forever. It's up to you.
Hey, look, I got time. So speaking of the Umaga, obviously you just went on this week-long trip to that lake, and obviously you like to fish. Do you find that most of your time out of the shop or the workspace, for that matter, helps you develop some of the best cigars that you probably produce?
I've had no free time at all. So like even this week, the reason why I went to Umbagog this week was because 2 years ago I did a charity event, in which it was where I was in drag, and they auctioned off my fake tits for breast cancer awareness, and some guys contributed $7,500, and as part of that was a fishing trip with me to Lake Umbagog. So I went. We had a great time, but I really, it's the one thing that's a little gotten away from me. There's no time for anything but work. And it's pretty much been that way for the last 5 years. And look, I don't want to complain about it because it's awesome. You know what I mean? If it was the other way around, I'd be bemoaning the fact that things weren't going well.
Yeah, come on.
So you're really grateful and thankful for it. But I like to find a way to slow it down a bit, but I'm also my own worst enemy.
Yeah.
I keep committing to other projects. And look, the last 10 days, I've done very little social media. It's been like 10 of the best days ever. Because if you don't interact online, less people try to interact with you. And it cuts down on the amount of noise. And it makes you kind of go, wow, could I get away with just not doing this at all? You ask yourself a question. I don't think you could. Plus, ultimately, I like the interaction, but it's hard to find a balance. It's just, and the other thing too is, you kind of feel like the iron's hot and you want to strike when it's hot.
Yes.
But also you don't want to outpace it either.
Yeah.
And, get ahead of your skis and start to dream that you're going to become something more than what you could possibly be. So you got to be really, really careful, because if I manage the company poorly, then ultimately it means that'll be reflected in the product. The product can only be good if the company is healthy.
Yeah.
So I always have to consider what's in the best interest of the company from that. I can't just I can tell you right now, if I could have probably sold as much as $4 million more this year than what we will sell. But what it would have required is it would have required me to make a much larger cash investment.
Yeah.
Would have required me to hire another half a dozen people. It would require the growth as it is now. I think year to date we're sitting somewhere like around 70% year to date growth, and we did like 90% year to date last year, and it's too much. It's one of the reasons why, we didn't open any new accounts from last August until the trade show.
I got
lucky.
lucky.
The trade show that month, we opened new accounts because you kind of have to. If you're at the trade show, how can you? We're not opening new accounts, and it just seems really douchey. But but we're trying to. It's also one of the reasons why we actually don't do any of it. Well, it's not true. So somebody like where you live, you've got a rep.
Yeah.
So you got somebody like a Pete or a Steve visiting your shop, and they're trying to get you to carry the brand.
Yeah.
But we don't have representation in probably about 60 to 70% of the country.
Yeah.
And in a lot of very big areas. I mean, all the mid-Atlantic and we have no representation in the Midwest. We have no representation out west, except for the Pacific Northwest. I mean, we have a lot of really big gaps. There's so many places for us to still grow. It's actually kind of crazy. We really have we're just scratching the surface. And so I got to just cool my jets a little,
And, I think that right there helps you kind of stay sane. As much as we want to see, as much as you want to see, the Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust brand and every single retailer, as you said, with more growth comes more overhead. And yes, it'll eventually pay for itself, but that's a lot more things you have to run, have to keep your hands in on top of everything else you're doing.
I'll tell you right now, I'm just in shipping from Nicaragua right now. I'm spending well over $20K a month just in shipping of cigars from Nicaragua. I mean, the numbers are getting serious. You know what I mean? It's not one of those, it's okay. So the level of risk keeps coming up, and there's no way to really. I mean, it's one of the things, and I think anybody that has a small company, there can be too much growth.
Yeah.
It can become a bit unmanageable, and we're trying really hard to not let that be the case. But also, you got retailers and they have customers, and you're trying to deliver what they want. I mean, since we launched Brûlée in 2019, which Chris Duque I saw verified, so thank you for that, Chris. We have never actually ever not been in back order on that cigar. So here we are 2 years later, and I still have no idea as to how many cigars the market could actually smoke.
Yeah.
Because if you're in back order, then what that means is I'm not shipping it to a retailer, and that means he doesn't have it on a shelf, which means it isn't being smoked. So you're losing those sales.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate operating in this back order scenario. It makes your ego feel good, but it doesn't do anything good for your business
at all.
It doesn't do anything good for your retailers. It doesn't do anything good for your consumers. It's one of the things that I'm really going to focus very hard on in 2022 is to try to get things to stabilize a bit. But it doesn't help. I mean, COVID caused a little cigar boom, man. And we had a little cigar boom happening before that, because we have a whole new group of, urban smokers that are getting into cigars that we never had before. So we had that growth happening. We have the COVID year happening. We have a lot of millennials. They like handmade cigars. They like the fact that it's all handmade. They like the fact that there's 3+ years into it. They like the complexity and the intricacies of it. And they also, for me, works really well is they tend to be a consumer base that prefers quality over quantity, which is really good for a guy like me. But that also, it adds just another layer to the complexity from the business fulfillment side of it. Every cigar is limited. There's a limit on Macanudo.
Yeah.
It's just they don't hit it anymore. You know what I mean? But there's a limit. There's a limit on everything. It doesn't matter what it is. There's a limit.
Steve, you're hilarious, man, and more than anything, you're hilarious, but it's true. And at the end of the day, I think more than anything, I think that's kind of what has built your following. Is just so raw and uncut, and people love the sack swash. Like, speaking of sack swash, like how did that become a thing? Like,
so there used to be a shop in Jersey whose name continues to escape me. It's not in business anymore, and It's when I worked for Lou at JR, and one day I was driving north in the truck, and I realized I had left my cigars at the office, and I was already an hour north heading back to New Hampshire. And so I just, well, it wasn't Google at that time, it probably Yahoo, figure out where a cigar store is so I could pull off and buy some cigars, because I can't drive without a cigar. It's like a seatbelt. I am always smoking a cigar. I mean, even if I'm driving somewhere for 10 minutes, I'm still lighting a cigar, even if I have to waste it. And so I looked for a local store. I pulled in. I went through the front door, and the owner just kind of looked up, and he was like, wow, Steve Saka's in my cigar store. It's like seeing a Sasquatch. And I ended up hanging out for an hour and a half, smoking cigars with his locals, his guys. And every 3-4 weeks, I would stop in there and smoke a cigar, and they just started calling me Saka Squatch. So it was just a name that I was given by the locals in that shop. You know that works with nicknames. You don't get to pick your nicknames, man.
Yeah.
And I never made a big deal out of it,
but you ran with it, and I think it's so fitting, you know. And I think those are the different things. That's why, you know, I love people like Jeff and Abe. I smoke in and Coronas, man, and you hear like you got a retailer talking about them. It's just, you know, they have developed that cult like following, and you know it's the same thing with you. It's just one of those things that is going to continue to grow and continue to just do great things, man. So
you hope. But I mean, the one thing you got to keep in mind is, you know, I mean, these people that, you know, you as a retailer look up to, and look, I'm really personally good friends with both. They're like personal friends. They're not. Yeah. I do a lot of business with both, but they're like honest friends. Like, they stay at our house, we stay at their house, know the kids, the whole 9 yards. Jeff, I mean, when I met Jeff the first time, he was slinging cigars out of an apartment in Orlando. He had no shop. When I met Abe the first time, he was, and Abe will correct me on this because I don't know how the deal worked, but he seemed like he was a minority partner in one shop in Tequesta, Florida. You know what I mean? So it isn't like they started off smoking and started off as Corona. I mean, Lou Rothman at JR Cigar, I started as J&R Grocer. It was a bodega shop in Harlem, New York. You know what I mean? Milk, eggs, cigarettes, lotto tickets, you know, pints of whatever, you know, Jägermeister behind the glass kind of place. And he just had a couple stand-up cabinets in the bodega that had handmade cigars in them. So I mean, these people, they make their own future. Yeah, you know what I mean. They do it, and that opportunity is one of the things in our business. It's still possible. It's harder than it's ever been before, but you can grind your way to success. But the thing that I don't think most people realize is that, I mean, in the case of both Abe and Jeff, they've been at it 2.5 decades, close to 3 decades. You know what I mean? I mean, it doesn't happen overnight.
Absolutely.
And it takes a serious level of commitment that, honestly, I don't even know if it's a healthy level of commitment. I mean, I don't know that it makes your life the best your life can be, you know? I mean, the same scenario with me. I mean, all there is work.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see a lot of people just say, screw that, you know? I mean, I can't argue with them. And I think it's one of the reasons why for a lot of people that get into our business on the manufacturing or more on the brand owner side, I don't think they really have any comprehension as to how difficult it truly is.
Yes.
Or how competitive it truly is, and how difficult it is to get a consumer. It's difficult to get them to try your cigar, but it's way more difficult to get them to like it enough that they're going to add it to their rotation.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you walk into any shop and they got hundreds of choices, and they're all brown and round. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to get that guy to add you to his rotation, to get that guy to like it enough that he buys a whole box, and when the box gets low, he's willing to buy another box. That's a really, really big step.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the smaller companies falter. they get a lot of buzz and they get a lot of love and they get a lot of great ratings and rankings and whatnot, but it doesn't translate into repeat consumer sales.
Yep.
And there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that consumers don't even think about. Like you have a small business, right?
Yep.
You got Dapper D's. You're trying to run a cigar store. You're dealing with customers, and you got all your own problems. You got staffing problems, and you got cash flow problems, and you got landlord problems, and all this nonsense. And you want to do business with companies that it's easy to do business with.
Absolutely.
And a lot of us small companies are really a pain in the ass to do business with. Some of the large ones are too, but
yeah,
we're just so disorganized. You know what I mean? And it makes your job hard. So as a retailer, you tolerate it when a brand is super hot. Brand XYZ is the hot brand. People are asking for it. But when that brand starts to tail off a little, you as a retailer kind of go, "Phew, I'm glad that shit isn't selling anymore because I hate dealing with those people."
Yeah.
Right? And you can't wait the fact to just, I don't have to carry this anymore. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
You know, so how the company handles email communication and how they handle debits and credits and invoice memos and all of that nonsense, and how we pack and what the shipping costs and the way we pack. These are things the consumer doesn't think about at all, but they are things that impact the retailer's buying decisions.
Yeah.
Because they have real impacts on how his business runs and operates. And as you know, consumers come into your store every day and they ask, why don't you carry X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
When the reality is you can't.
Yeah.
You only have physically so much space. So you have to try to pick the ones that you think are going to satisfy the most customers that are in your store, is what you ultimately have to do. And it's a business decision.
Jason Fitzgerald, you're
I saw that.
a ass clown. Okay. I just want to let you know that. And to hear it from me, this is why I don't post your comments sometimes. Okay. Like,
yeah, but he's just busted balls, and that's okay.
Yeah, I know. I love Jason he's a regular here at Dapper D's, and sometimes I think that's more of a curse than a good thing. But I love Jason.
I have a Dapper D's question.
Come on, let's
so
go.
I went on your website.
Uh-huh.
I'm looking at the photos. Looks like a nice shop. And then I scroll to the bottom. You got a lot of rules, man. Okay, you got like the no multicolor shoe rule. You can wear plain tennis shoes, but I can't wear multicolored tennis shoes. So does that mean like if I wear like blue Skechers, those aren't allowed?
Those are.
Oh.
But when it comes to like, let's say, so we like to classify ourselves as a high-end cigar lounge, right? And not a lot of people do it. So I know the comments are about to start rolling. Not to a lot of people be like, oh, this guy is an idiot. He has no clue what he's doing. Yada, yada, yada. I look at it from two folds, right? We have a total of 7 cigar lounges here in Jacksonville. Every single one of them has their own reputation on what consumers like and what consumers don't like. And and my biggest thing is I want to cater to my customer base. Not saying that somebody that wears that is not my customer base, but at the end of the day, I don't think it is hard to look presentable. Now, you get sometimes where people come in and shower flip-flops and tank tops and all that stuff.
Dude, I see them on the plane every day, man.
Yeah. It's like at the end of the day, that's their money spends as well. But my focus is networking, right? Cigar lounges and golf courses are one of the 2 areas where networking is a thing, right? Where people off the jump is going to judge you based off of how you look.
Of course, we all do.
With that being said,
fairly or unfairly, it's the way it is.
Exactly. And within that thing is just a way to kind of help everybody, make that next step wherever they want to go. If it's somebody that has a power to hire and they're hiring for a multi-million-dollar company and paying a $90,000 salary, yes, the conversation can be really good with you in those type of clothings. But at the end of the day, let's just face it, 9 times out of 10, the conversation is gonna probably go, just one of those that just happened, and we're probably never gonna bring it up again. So we're in that. Florida is that beach. It's like a beach mentality, and
that's what you say. You're doing it in a difficult environment to have a dress code.
Yes,
Florida's anti-dress code.
Very much so. Very much so. I understand
that because you're trying to differentiate your shop from other shops that people can buy cigars in. Because the reality is, and that is what it comes down to. When it comes down to a shop, nobody is going to a cigar store because of the cigars.
Yeah.
In almost everybody's humidor, there's going to be cigars that you're like and that you're willing to smoke. So for the most part, most consumers choose their favorite store based on the environment, how they feel when they're there, what's the owner like, and often the staff is a reflection of the owner's personality, and everybody kind of finds their place that they're comfortable. And I mean, if it was all the same, then there would be no reason to go to one store over another store.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it makes sense to me. The only thing is, it means Skip Martin will never be allowed in the shop because I think all he wears is flip-flops. I don't think he has anything but those flip-flops.
And that's another thing. It's like we have had the mayor of Jacksonville in our environment. We have had politicians in our environment, obviously, which those two arenas help, obviously minimize a lot of things on the FDA side, on the congressional.
The more polls we get to go into a cigar store, the better.
The better.
Because that way it lets them see that we're not catering to kids. It lets them see the average age of the customer base. It lets them see that these are, not just adult consumers, but these are like 40-year-old plus consumers. You know what I mean?
Steve, I had a big meeting this weekend. We're opening up another store, and a lot of people be like, "Whoa, Jesus," you know what I mean? Like, we got to deal with this shit somewhere else. I'll be completely honest with you. The place and area that we're trying to get into is a very prestigious environment. And when we spoke with the developer of the shopping center, he was like, "Yeah, I don't really know about going into, a cigar or opening up my area to a cigar lounge."
Cigar store, right?
Exactly. So, I had so many people on the line that was like, "No, this one is different. This one is different." And the guy had a basis. A brief synopsis of what a cigar lounge in Jacksonville was based on another competitor that's in town. Right. And they were like, "No, they're totally not them." You know what I mean? And that's one thing. I think one of my biggest headaches that I deal with on a daily basis is dress code. I looked at PCA, right? When we were at PCA, it was very rare. Like, you've seen people dress down, but it was still a dress down. It still looked good, right? It was still done in good taste. And I think that is the part of, at the end of the day, we set that standard. And if it wasn't for that standard that we set, we wouldn't even be in the conversation.
So let me ask you this. I'm gonna get into the dangerous territory because I'm good at this. I mean, is your shop primarily a black shop?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so what's your customer break?
We have a great market of Caucasians, African Americans, right. Hispanics.
So you got a very diversified group.
Very much so. We have younger folks.
What I was going to say is my experience with most black cigar shops, black owned, that are primarily black customers. You guys just dress fucking better. You just dress nicer. I mean. It's us white guys that are wearing our cargo shorts and our flip-flops that are like uber schlubby. You know what I mean? Look, part of it also has to stem from the fact that, really the black-owned shops and the black-operated shops, they tend to have a lot more women in them. Yes. There's a lot more black women that are into cigars than there are white women. So when we had the cigar boom during the 90s, the white women didn't follow the guys into the cigar stores, whereas the cigar boom that we've been experiencing with this new younger generation of urban consumers, to just use that term, you have a lot of women.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some shops that I go into where the customer mix will be like almost 40% women, 60% guys. And that's a crazy number. And I only see that in the black shops. That's where I see that breakdown. I don't see that breakdown in the traditional cigar stores. I like it because it makes the discussions more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It makes the environment more enjoyable and pleasurable. So I like it a lot. So I like the fact that luckily, because there's so many more black women smoking cigars, it's now bringing white women into smoking more cigars. And the other thing that's really weird about that is 30 odd years ago, there were actually more black women cigar smokers than there were black men cigar smokers for premium handmaids. But they didn't smoke them in the stores. They smoked them at home.
Yeah.
They smoked them on their back deck and their porch. There's a whole group of 50 to 60-year-old black women that are really familiar with cigars, that have been smoking them for 3 decades plus. It's kind of a unique twist.
And you know what the funnier part is that we had a cigar training where we had 18 folks in the cigar training, and 9 of them were women. We had a fedora launching on Friday where we have our own Dapper D's fedora collection. We literally had maybe 60% women in the building.
When you say fedora, you mean like a hat, a fedora?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, see, us white guys, we're never going to get into that shit.
But that's the crazy part. That is not, and so like you stated something earlier where people come in based on the owner and the vibe of the owner and the staff. And I mean, if I was to call this place Dapper D's and coming here on a daily, and which is no problem because I actually like flip-flops, but if I was to come in and white t-shirt, cargo shorts, and flip-flops every day, people be like,
how's that dapper?
How the hell is that dapper? You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And when we look at it, I have pretty much simplified it to the point where it's kind of manageable. And we're fairly new as well, so it's hard for everybody to kind of get on board with it. But like this is a t-shirt, right?
Right.
So I don't have a little logo on this. This is a Milano t-shirt. So it's a nice, fabricated t-shirt. Nothing too major. It still looks good. I have on some Chelsea boots. Chelsea boots is, you know what a Chelsea boot is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have on some Chelsea boots, some Aldo Chelsea boots. You're talking $300 boots and a nice, decent shirt and some nice pants. And at the end of the day, that is all it takes. You know what I mean? When I look at it, is some people simplified it, and a lot of my comments, a lot of my reviews, the bad reviews that I do have is because of my dress code. So I could be like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not gonna do a dress code because I'm getting bad reviews. And at the end of the day, it's just, for me, it's more up my lane. I minimize my riffraff. I minimize I minimize the confusion of if this is a cigar lounge or if it's a club.
I kind of, in some weird way, so the price point of my cigars, it kind of pre-screens the customers too. You know what I mean? I don't look. Cigars are handmade. There are going to be clunkers.
Yeah.
Even no matter how much attention to detail, no matter how much money we spend, ultimately it's a handmade product made out of an organic material.
Yeah.
The guys that buy at my price point don't tend to get their knickers in a twist about 1 or 2 bad cigars.
Exactly.
They kind of like, yeah, it happens. I understand. They got more important things to worry about. But man, when you're down in that $6, $7 price point, those guys are they can be rough customers, man. They want the world when they're not paying for the world.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, because it's one of the things I get into all the time, because we warranty every cigar. If you get a bad cigar, you don't have to post it on Instagram or Facebook. Just send us a message, and we replace bad cigars. It's part of the deal, right? And look,
He does.
as we grow,
Right.
but I do. And as we grow as a company, well, there's more of that we have to do. But I don't feel as though we're being taken advantage of. You know what I mean? And the thing is, what ends up happening is if you see the same guy, 3 times over the course of the year, you're just kind of like, okay, Bob, we're sending you these, but just stop buying our cigars because they obviously suck for you. We just don't want you as a customer anymore.
Yeah. Okay,
that pretty much ends it. But that person is so rare that's taking advantage of you that why punish the 99% of the other people, you know what I mean, that literally got a bum whatever. And then so the price point kind of helps to pre-screen out some of those customer service issues because, it's like me. Like I just ordered something off Amazon. It came. Turns out it's a piece of shit. Am I going to go through the hassle of returning it? It cost me $16. I got exactly what I deserved for my $16. No, I'm going to throw it in the trash and I'm going to move on. I'm going to buy what I should have bought in the first place.
Yes.
I'm not going to take my time to go through the rigmarole to get my $16 back.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
30 years ago, I'd be chasing that mofo down for my $16 because it mattered. Thankfully, the $16 don't matter anymore. So I was an idiot. I shouldn't have bought that.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have listened to those Amazon reviews.
But that's another thing. It's like we sell your cigar, Palencia, Padron. We find that for most of my consumer base, price is not an issue, right?
Right.
And mind you, by the way, we don't jack our prices up. I mean, what you see online is what we price our cigars at. Right. I think for the budget that you're spending on your cigars and the ambiance that we provide, I think it all matches very much so. Yes, you can't come here and look like a bag of ass, but you can certainly have a great time. Meet some great people. We have NFL players come in all the time. We have had UFC fighters in. We have had, the people, the quote unquote prestigious people come in and enjoy themselves. And, I just think, sometimes, our lane is not complimentary to everybody. But again, I don't think there's one business in this world that's complimentary to everybody. So when's your first game? Your first game is what? Next week against the Texans, right? I'm an Eagles fan, so we got.
Are you really?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
come on
dude,
now.
That is so painful right now.
Go Birds, baby. Go Birds.
The Eagles look like a mess.
What?
Oh no!
How dare you? How dare you sit on this live in front of all these people and lie like that?
They tied with the Jets in preseason. Come on.
Look, it's preseason.
Did you see that Patriots game? There was nothing good in that.
We're talking preseason. Like
I hear you.
Next week is about to be.
So Jalen Hurts is going to be the starter, right? That's going to be the deal.
Absolutely.
All right. So Jalen Hurts
with Gardner Minshew as a backup.
Okay, which is good. And then what? You got Devontae Smith. He's a great player. You got Zach Ertz. He's a great player.
Dallas Goedert.
You got a lot
Jalen
of
Reagor.
You got a lot of people, but the Eagles.
What's your team? So
look, it's going to be so cliche, but I live in New Hampshire, so therefore it's the Pats.
Okay. I mean, you guys definitely are tanking now. I think it's safe to say that.
Last year was a disaster of you, but we always knew it was going to come to an end.
Yeah.
I mean, can't go on forever.
I mean, but how did that feel though? Like to lose Tom Brady, and Tom Brady, his first year gone, goes to the Super Bowl and win.
You would think that you'd be upset, but I got to tell you, it's hard not to be just genuinely thankful to just what he contributed to the Patriots for 2 decades. I mean, you're talking about all those Super Bowls, all those amazing seasons. I think most people, they were genuinely happy to see Brady get another ring with Tampa. I think they really were. And look, the way the team was always on a collision course for there eventually to be a really ugly 3-year stretch. I mean, we were the team that every year had no money left in the salary cap.
At all.
We were always robbing Peter to pay Paul. Luckily, Brady was complicit in that, which I'm very thankful for because he was always willing to give us a hometown discount. He was always probably underpaid by $8 to $12 million in any given season over the last decade. And that makes a real difference. Because an extra $10 million in your cap, it makes a lot of other positions a lot better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
An extra $1 million for a guard really takes you into a different class of guard, So when you have your top tier player willing to eat $10, $12 million, that extra $10, $12 million spread around and the variety of position players, it makes a huge difference. I don't think it was rough last year. It was hard to watch. I felt bad for Cam because I kind of wanted to see him come back, and he looked like he was gonna early in the season, but then it got really ugly in the middle of the season. Towards the tail end, he started to get his feet underneath him. But I mean, for us, Cam was always a stopgap. We kind of knew that.
Yeah.
And now we'll see what happens. Your advantage as an Eagles fan is the division that you're currently in.
Very much so.
I mean, the Cowboys on paper should crush everybody, but they don't.
That was the same thing last year. They did terrible.
Right. And I mean, I do tell you though, that head coach of the Giants, he's a solid coach.
Yeah.
And I think that they're going to give him the time necessary. He's going to be a real competitor for you. The Redskins are the Redskins. We'll see what happens. Oh, I'm sorry. Not the Redskins, the Washington
football team.
My bad. Yeah. It's hard, right? You got to break 40 years of habit on that one.
Yeah. And I think with Chase Young is amazing. He is really defense wins Super Bowls. I mean, hands down. And that defense last year looked amazing. I think if they could have put up more consistent points and also stopped a little bit more of minimize their mistakes for that matter, I think they would have been a lot better off. But I think hands down, I think we have a great chance, and I feel good. We're in Jaguars territory, so you have a lot of the Jag fans that are follow the superstition rules that whenever a quarterback leaves the Jags and go to a team, they win a Super Bowl. So if that's superstition is correct, then we are headed to the Super Bowl this year. And I honestly believe if we can stay healthy enough, we could do that. I mean, Jalen Reagor was literally seconds behind Tyreek Hill in his 40-yard dash. He just couldn't stay healthy. But then also we had Carson Wentz that left his legs in the locker room every time he came on the field. So
yeah, Carson Wentz was ultimately a disappointment, I think.
I mean, hands down. Hands
You
down.
know what? But the thing is, it was so set up for failure because, I mean, as soon as they didn't keep Foles, and I understand, look, on paper and even visually by eye, Wentz is a way better quarterback than Foles. Way more tools, way more athletic ability. But Foles is the one that got you the ring.
Yes.
Foles is the one that they got a statue out in front of the stadium for.
That's a fact.
And I think it was a really, I don't know, Wentz was put in a situation where, short of just winning another Super Bowl right off the bat, everything else was going to be a failure, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how that was ever going to go good, to be honest. And I think in the case of the Eagles, man, you got a lot of pressure on that young kid, Jalen Hurts. You know what I mean? He's 23, 24 years old? I mean, he shows a lot of promise, but man, he's now got to be the face of the franchise. That's a lot to take on, and that's a lot to take on particularly in a city like Philadelphia, because
Philly is not they're not an easy crowd to please.
No, not an easy crowd. That's a city that takes its sports really serious.
Very seriously. Well, speaking of that, me and the wife we got our tickets to go to Philly to see Kansas City versus the Eagles on October 3rd. So,
is that where you're originally from? Is from Philly?
I'm originally from Chicago. Well, outside of Chicago.
How the hell do you become an Eagles fan?
So true story, right? I'm 45 minutes south of Chicago in a small town called Kankakee. So if you ever drove to Chicago, coming from the east or whatever, you have to go past that. Secondly, growing up, a lot of people loved the Bears, and I never followed what people loved. So I was like, yo, Donovan McNabb is this great thing out of Chicago, and I'm going to follow him. So
he was an underappreciated quarterback. I mean,
very much so.
I think McNabb was a really great player.
Hey, look, so I end up following him. Syracuse. I was actually a Syracuse fan for a long time, and then when he went to Philly, I just rocked with Philly, and now I'm no longer. I really don't follow college football too much. I'm like more of a University of Michigan or Miami fan. Why? I don't know. Outside the fact that Michigan was like the main school team to root for, and I actually think they're gonna probably have a better season this year. I have Aaron Rodgers on my fantasy football team, so we should see. So,
but sorry, everybody, that we got on this NFL discussion.
Hey, look,
I'm excited for a new season.
Hey, look, I think we all are, man. 2020 was literally that year. It was just like we lost so many of what we call the norm, and we don't have a clue what the norm will ever look like again, right? I mean, you look at different things that comes up where people used to get real close and have real conversation. It's like, no, I'm gonna just text that shit to you. Like I'm not getting in nobody's face like it was. And I think it's gonna be interesting to see how COVID still impacts the NFL this year, and also how we managed to get back to that sense of normalcy in any kind of way we can. So
yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, so I started watching a series on Netflix because a friend recommended to watch the Formula F1 Drive to Survive. Excellent, kind of does what Hard Knocks does for football.
Yeah,
it does this for F1 Formula Racing, which I knew absolutely zero about. Mm-hmm. And the first two seasons, it covers the 2018 and the 2019 season. Highly recommend it. It's super exciting, really super interesting. And I'm not really into motorsports, but I just started third season, and it's the COVID season, and I'm already like depressed. It's like I don't even think I want to watch this because what am I watching? I'm just watching them cancel races. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's just like,
and that honestly that doesn't really make sense because it's like when it comes to like COVID barriers and following protocols and stuff like that, that should be a sport that is pretty easy to maintain, if I'm not mistaken.
You would think it's actually surprising. One of the things I learned from the F1, the mockumentary or whatever you want to call it, like a team like Mercedes, they have 1,000 people that work on the F1 program. 2 cars, 2 drivers, and there's 1,000 people involved in that. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like the amount of money that, and I guess growing up here in the U.S., I never really paid much attention to F1, because there's only one F1 race in the States in Austin, and I don't even know if there's any American drivers because there's only 20 F1 drivers in the world at any one time. That's it. There's 20 cars, 20 drivers, 10 teams, 2 drivers per team. It's pretty interesting. I highly recommend Netflix.
F1.
Yeah, F1 Drive to Survive. Really, really good. I don't know about the third season, but
Josh likes that as well, so that's interesting. Look, man, I would love to sit here and do this. I know you have a busy day. Tomorrow's Labor Day. I don't know what you and Cindy is doing, but at the end of the day, take some time to
stop with that noise.
Take some time to sit back and enjoy.
What about you? Your store's open tomorrow, right?
Of course.
Your store was open today.
Yep.
Right. It's the thing is, when does the store ever close? Christmas, Thanksgiving,
Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas.
I mean, it's. I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. Small retailer. It's like a 7-day-a-week job, man.
Yeah.
Even when you're not there, the times that you don't get phone calls about something, it never goes away, man. It's a full-time gig, and I don't know. So, I mean, what are your customers like? Really, I mean, what are some of the more popular cigars in your store?
Popular. Okay. LFD whenever they're in.
Right.
Palencia for sure. Tabernacle is a big one.
Are you getting a better supply of those now?
Well, Robusto, yes, not Toro.
Okay.
We sell Perdomo. We sell, Tatuaje does well. Your brand does well. Rocky does good. I mean, right now, honestly, one of the best things that we sell is the Deadwood selection. I mean, but they can't keep that stuff in stock. And it's just like, you got 14, 15 boxes on back order. I try to tell the customers, I don't think they understand what $14, $15 on back order looks like to a bank account, but it doesn't look too appeasing. But again, we haven't had things like Java in 3 months, 4 months. So it's like you have that crowd, but then you have, your Arturo Fuente, your Padrones is always going to do good. I mean, so we tend to move our humidor. That's one thing that I like to see is we move our humidor.
Right. But it has to. If it doesn't turn, I always ask. Go. One of the things I always ask a retailer when I go into their store is for them to show me the most expensive cigar in the store, and they'll often take me to some limited opus or some crazy little hammer Padron thing or a Dunbarton unicorn, right? Point at that. And the reality is that isn't the most expensive. It's the boxes that they have taking up shelf space that they bought 3 years ago. And they're still just sitting there. And the box had 18 cigars last month in it, and 18 cigars this month in it. Next month it has 17. That costs the retailer a fortune. That's actually their most expensive cigar. So trying to figure out what are the right things to stock is really, really critical to the success of a retail shop.
Absolutely.
And it takes a while to figure that out. And the other thing that it takes a while to figure out is you as a retailer, when things don't work, you just take it behind the shed and shoot it. Be done with it.
Yeah.
Move on. Get your money back. You know what? So you didn't make any profit, maybe even lost a little money on that bet. But it then gives you the money back that you can then invest in something else that hopefully your consumers in your store will like better. And then the other thing too is, there's certain things that are universally true, but for the most part, like LaFleur sells really well everywhere right now because it's so limited. Padron sells really well, but other brands, some stores they sell great in, store 2 miles down the street doesn't sell at all. It just depends. So it's trying to figure out what's right for your crew and what they like to smoke. And oftentimes it gets back to what does the owner like? What does the clerks that work the store like? What do the shop regulars that hang out in the shop? They impact the crowd a lot too.
Yes.
If they choose to smoke and what they choose to recommend, it makes a big, big difference.
And that's the biggest part is like, etching out your retail space or your real estate for that matter for it to make sense. I mean, a lot of people, I had a couple conversations, manufacturers don't like to hear or reps don't like to hear that their brand is no longer being sold,
right?
In your store. And it's like, at the end of the day, no, we haven't been open 10 years or 5 years or even 1 year. But at the end of the day, I can tell you based off of what I see and what I push and what people are smoking and are not coming back to it is not buying. So I'm not sitting on your inventory to make you happy for a year, 2 years. I would do a blowout sale
Plus,
of
it's
it.
also doing a disservice for your customers.
Absolutely.
Because if they wanted it, they would buy it. But if they're not, they're not, for whatever the reason. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with this cigar.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a perfectly great cigar. And it's one of the things that I think you have to understand, that a rep, he gets paid commission.
Yeah.
So for him, every sale means something, obviously. But the reality is, if a product isn't turning well in a store, then that isn't doing good for me either.
Yeah.
You buying whatever, me Ritas, and they don't sell. Well, how do I make money? I only make money if the cigars, I sell them to you, you sell them to a consumer smokes them, so he comes back and he buys another one because he likes it enough. And if that isn't happening, then that's why it's so hard to judge how successful something is. You can't look at initial sales as meaning anything.
Exactly.
They really mean nothing. All they mean is that somebody's willing to give you an opportunity or a chance.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's in no way a reflection as to how a brand is going to do. Because almost anything new in year one, it almost always sells well, because, you know, you go to a cigar store, you say, hey, what's new? And you say, hey, I got this over here. Okay, and you try it. So almost everything that a retailer brings in almost always gets a sampling.
Yep.
Every retailer kind of has it. Look, some retailers know that I'm going to burn through 4 boxes. I'm going to burn through 1 box. Some retailers are like, I need 20 boxes to start, because they know what their sampling size is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then the second sale doesn't mean anything, because the retailer replaces what got sampled out. So it's when you get into that third and fourth turn that you kind of start to see what's happening.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that'll happen is next year the new stuff will come out. And no matter how good the cigar is, that cigar will normally go down in sales because the new stuff is crowding it out. The question is, does it not go down so much that the retailer doesn't leave it on the shelf? And then in year 3, does it then start to matriculate its way up, which means that, consumers actually do really like it. And they come back to it and they're smoking it on the regular. And that's really kind of where you see whether a brand has any viability or not, is in like year 3.
And I think one thing that you brought up too earlier was, I mean, it was spot on, is working with these companies. Like, I mean, you have some that's difficult, and you have some that is just like, it's easy, but it's like, why are you making this so difficult? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm telling you I want this, communicate that this is not going to be in, or, you know, when is it going to be in, and, you know, different things of that nature. But, you know, the business of cigars, I think all the way around, whether you're on the manufacturing side, brand ownership side, retail side, consumer side, every part of it is meticulous, and it has to be looked at as such. You have to try things. You have to see what works, what doesn't, what smokes, what doesn't, what is your palate, what is not your palate. And it requires, at the end of the day, for you to come back and say, okay, is this going to work? You know,
look, even within my line, like I see Jason made the comment that he's going to try one of my cigars tomorrow at your place. Problem is, it's going to depend on which one he tries.
Exactly.
My cigars are very wildly different. I don't think that the guy that smokes Sober Mesa Brulee is the same consumer that smokes Mi Querida Tricky Traca.
Yeah.
I think, and that's one of the things that with my portfolio, it's very diverse. So there's something there for most genres of consumers and what they like, but it's also them identifying which is the one, because, you know, most companies will have like 1 or maybe 2 brands that everybody says that's their best cigar.
Yeah.
I don't really have that. It really depends on the individual consumer. There's people that say Sober Mesa is my best. Other people that say Sin Compromiso is my best. Others that say Muestra Naka Tamale. It's very wildly different, which is good from that perspective, because it means I'm hitting a lot of touchstones, but it also makes it more difficult. It would be easier when it's just, Liga Privada, that's the best cigar, just buy Liga Privada. It kind of makes the messaging a lot cleaner. Yeah.
Well, Steve, man, this has been a great segment. I love the conversation that we have had. And I think, more collectively, me learning the things that I've learned from you is amazing. And I just appreciate everything you're doing for the industry. And
I'm bringing it entirely out of selfish means. It's not a charitable act going on here.
No, for real, man. Like, you're awesome, man. So at the end of the day, keep doing great things, man. One thing we do on the virtual smoke deck, we do have a gym. The gym is anything that you want to talk about. And it's more motivational, more of an inspirational, but just one gem that you would like to drop on these people that's watching and is going to watch here in the future.
Me? A gem?
Yeah, a gem.
A gem. Oh, boy,
you're a gem.
So is this a cigar gem or is this just a life gem?
It's a life gem.
A life gem. All right. So funny you mentioned this because I'm actually working on a book.
Really?
It's the stupidest book ever. It really is. It's such a stupid idea that you can't even imagine. But part of it is just it's kind of like 100 things that I have said in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was in a conversation with a friend of mine who was getting really upset about a small manufacturer. And he's like, man, I want to go after this guy. I want everyone to know what a fraud he is, blah, 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 blah. And I was just kind of like, just calm down, man, because you never look good when you punch down.
Yep.
Punching down is a huge mistake. And also, I'm of the belief that punching to your left and right is bad. So, like, for me, I don't look at, like, Nicholas at Foundation as a competitor. I don't look at Skip Martin at Romacraft as a competitor. I mean, we are competitors. And we're all kind of in that same size profile. But ultimately, I don't want their business. Because what am I going to do? I'm going to steal 10% of their customers and what? I'm going to add a few $100,000 to my gross sales. For me, the target is always Altadis, General, Davidoff, Swisher. That's it. Those are the people that I'm competing with.
Yeah.
Now, obviously Padron, Fuente, but I always think it's always best to punch up in life.
Yeah.
Always punch up. Never punch down, and don't even waste your time punching to your left or your right. I'll always set the goal to kick somebody's ass that's worth kicking. You know what I mean? Because there's no point in it. It was kind of the same philosophy when I got to Drew Estate. And when I first got to Drew Estate, they were worried about Tatuaje and they were worried about CAO and all the other companies that were at the time, the Florida Dominicana, and it's just those aren't the guys to worry about. You don't want a bite of their pie. You want a bite of STG's pie.
Yes,
because STG is the one that's got the cake.
Yes.
So if you're going to steal cake, you want to steal it from those guys. So you have to think in your head, how can you compete for their customers?
Yep.
Because they certainly don't give them up. That's for damn sure. And so that's my gem. I'll always go after the big dogs.
Yep.
Don't waste your time on the others.
Well, Steve, we appreciate your time, and that gym was freaking amazing. That's one I live by. I tell people I don't worry about what's going on in Jacksonville. I worry about what's going on in Florida and the rest of the United States. So at the end of the day, man, Steve, we appreciate you so much, brother. You taking the time, 2 hours and 15 minutes out of your day to come sit down and have a cigar with me and all these phenomenal guys that's watching, guys and ladies that's watching this segment. So we appreciate you guys and look forward to seeing you guys here soon. And Steve, until next time, you be safe, brother.
Thanks, Jack. You have a great night.
You too, brother. Man, one thing I love about the virtual smoke deck is, man, we have so many intricate conversations that at the end of the day, you don't know where it's going to go. You don't know how deep it is. Like, I mean, the conversation me and Steve just had was just another one of those conversations that you can look forward to here on the virtual smoke deck, man. So if you're new to it, man, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, notification bell, give us a huge thumbs up. And if you're watching on Facebook, man, go follow Dapper D's Cigars as well as the virtual smoke deck on Facebook as well. And then if you're looking for all your cigar needs and wants, man, come check us out at DapperDCigars.com or come check us out in store at 725 Skymarsh Drive Jacksonville, Florida, 32218. It is not, the dress code is not as bad as we made it seem, man. Come back and enjoy yourself and have a great cigar, man. We appreciate you guys. Until next time, be safe. I will see you guys next week with Alan Rubin on the show from Alec Bradley Cigars. It's going to be another amazing another amazing podcast. So you guys have a great day. Be safe. And I'm Jack the Cigar Enthusiast, and I'm gone. Oh, by the way, before I do that, Steve Saka said, thank you, everybody. Y'all have